Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the January 7th Salisbury City Council work session. I'd like to begin by wishing everyone a Happy New Year. Hope everybody had a good one. And we're going to get right down to business. First up on the agenda is the Honeywell Guaranteed Savings Performance Contract. Ms. Miller, would you bring the troops up and we'll
All right, well, thank you, everyone. I know it's been quite some time since we briefed the council on what we've been doing with the Guaranteed Energy Savings Performance Contract. The city, several departments across the city have been working very hard on this contract over the last 12 months to refine it and to get it to a place where we could see guaranteed energy savings based on a mix of various energy conservation measures. I hope I relayed that kind of a good synopsis to you all in my memo. At this juncture, we feel that the city, may have three options. When we first looked at entertaining this type of a contract, it was with the intent to perform significant and much-needed improvements at the Salisbury Police Department for the purposes of replacing. At first, we were just looking at the chiller as being the main component that needed some help. It's quite costly to do that, but when you look at it holistically, just replacing the chiller may or may not be entirely what is needed at the Salisbury Police Department. So when we looked, again, holistically at the whole project, when you add that into other energy conservation measures, we were able to find a mix that balances out. So whereas the Salisbury Police Department, needs an $800,000 improvement to the entire HVAC system, it doesn't really yield that much as far as energy savings goes. You would think sort of it would, replacing an HVAC system. You sometimes think about your own home, you have an aging system. Oh, certainly by doing something.
Tax break, right? Year,
right. But it doesn't yield enough energy savings to pay for itself. It does yield some, but not enough to pay for itself. So when looking at this type of contract, it's really what you could think of as an alternate project delivery method. Okay. When we first started this contract back in December, by March of last year, we were at, say, a 60% level review. And the first investment grade audit that came back actually had improvements in the tune of maybe 4.6 million. That was looking at comprehensively the city, all city facilities, the various energy conservation measures that could be done, but they didn't all pay for themselves. So since March until now, that scope has been very much refined to accomplish the main goal of performing mechanical improvements at the Salisbury Police Department and offsetting that with the right mix, the right balance of other conservation measures at the fire station, for street lighting, at the Salisbury Zoo, at some of the water treatment facilities and the wastewater treatment plant, again, to balance the sort of the lack of energy savings at the police department with things that might not cost as much to do but have a much greater energy savings. So this is where we are currently at. We could do one of three things. Because this guaranteed energy savings performance contract would need a budget amendment of approximately 1.42 to 1.45 million, we could look at that, again, holistically as our, kind of our third option, go all in. It's the only option where the city would receive guaranteed energy savings. The other two options would be solely to use the budgeted amount in the FY19 budget for the chiller and look at replacing the chiller at the police department. The second option would be to also pursue a budget amendment, pursue something more comprehensive at the Salisbury Police Department. But again, it would not be part of a guaranteed energy savings performance contract. Both options 1 and 2 would be just done by the city through city forces, having an engineering company come out, spec the system, design the system, so on and so forth. So as a city, we're sort of at this juncture to understand, which option do we move forward with? The team, meaning the mayor's office, Department of Infrastructure and Development, my office, the Department of Finance, along with guidance from CQI, Mr. Richard Anderson, our energy consultant, feels comfortable and confident that looking at option 3, the guaranteed energy savings performance contract, is the most viable option because it accomplishes the work that we would like to see done at the Salisbury Police Department headquarters. Plus, we get the added benefit of energy savings to other city facilities and street lighting.
Okay. Couple of things. We went through several emergency purchases and procurement to keep the system the SPD system running. And I don't know what, I forget what the total was for that, but it was
It's like 24,000, I think.
$25,000. And I think one of the things that I look at when I look at this, we're really dealing with apples and oranges in my mind. The one is an age system that's deteriorating, which really produces no energy savings. Okay? And then we have a balance of other things. And the first thing that scares me as a CEO would look at it in the private sector, and they would say, there's an 18-year payback. Well, that's not true, because you've lumped in there the repair or replacement of the aging system, which is not going to render you any savings. I think there's two separate items. The one is, what are we going to do about the HVAC chiller system at the police department? And then there's the rest of it. That's how I'm trying to maybe simplify it a little.
Okay.
Because I will tell you, at an 18-year payback in the private sector, they'd laugh at you in terms of the return on investment savings. So I'd like to see it personally, and the other council members can chime in, but I would like to see it handled as, we know we have to fix the chillers, and then look at the other one as a standalone. Now, was there a calculation done on the return on investment if you separated out the chiller system and just put the cost of the balance versus the return, the energy savings, and what would the return be then? Do we know what that is?
Hold on just a second.
We have it.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
The total of the police department with the return on investment is 24 years. Fire department is, I'm gonna round these up, 8.6 for station 1, station 2 is 6.8, administrative services, 5.7. The building envelope portion at the Salisbury Service Center is an additional 15. The warehouse is 10. The wastewater treatment is 10. The paleo plant is 6. The zoo is 7.8. And then the street lighting conversions that go across with LED is 11, and that includes new poles and other infrastructure that actually we need to do anyway. So you're correct. If we look at them individually, I think we're well into around a 9-year, 10-year for all of the other things, and about a 25 for the police department. But there is savings at the police department if we move forward, and the only one that is really out of line is the chiller. It's 218-year payback, but the chiller was something we already needed to do, and that 300,000 was already budgeted for. So, Mr. President, your assessment is correct in some ways, but across all of this, not including some of the administrative costs, we're at 14.5 years total payback from an direct energy savings basis. Am I correct, Bob?
Mhm.
And that was our goal when we put the RFP, is that the energy savings needed to be under 15 years in the RFP, or we wouldn't move forward with it. Did I help to clarify that?
You did. My question, as a follow-up question that I have, you obviously do these kinds of assessments in the private sector as well, correct?
Okay, of course.
What is the average return that the private sector looks at for an investment like this in terms of years?
Do you want me? Yeah, so I think to help clarify a little bit more is that you can look at something as a energy efficiency upgrade project to be able to capitalize on the dollars. You also have something, say if you take a look at the chiller is a mechanical item that's failing right now, or you've invested
Take the
dollars.
chiller out,
Right.
eliminate the chiller.
Right. So
That's not even
I
an
think you
equation.
actually have 3 categories. You have energy efficiency opportunities to go in to make things more energy efficient. You have a chiller component, which is up at the top. In between is probably like your mechanical infrastructure at the police department. It's somewhat in between. You have an aged system that's outdated, which is going to start moving itself into the chiller category. So I think you need to create almost 3 categories. But if you look at private sectors, as the mental thinking, private sectors look at things as 6 year, everybody has different thresholds, 6 years, 8 years, 5 years, 3 years, depending on who's doing the investment. But they're looking at it not too much as, is it energy efficient or not, is what am I investing and what my payback is.
Right.
When an entity is looking at what's my infrastructure upgrades or things that I need to do, that has a different threshold level. That's money that you need to invest in what's your payback for future tenants or somewhere down the line. So I think what we have is probably a combination of a energy efficiency project that is helping offset a mechanical infrastructure item to be able to address at the same time. I don't know if you would agree with that, Richard, but it's sort of like a compound. There's different ways of looking at it, but
There's really different ways. Let me go to our easiest client. We deal with AutoNation nationwide. If it's an energy retrofit project that's just based on efficiency, they'd like to keep them somewhere between the 3 and the 5 year threshold.
Right.
Okay. If it's related to capital improvement, so this is rooftop units, heating and cooling systems, other related systems, they put a 10-year threshold on, and basically they, Starbucks, Walmart, all the big companies say after 10 years you invest no money, additional money into that piece of equipment. If it fails, you replace it. So that's the 2 big measures that I'd like to put out there. So lighting, controls, those smaller things are in the 3 to 5. If it's The threshold is usually 10 years on mechanical equipment. Now, a chiller, you can get 25-year useful life out of that. This piece of equipment, this chiller and cooling tower have exceeded that amount right now where we're at. And these would normally be a capital improvement project. So that's why Jennifer is saying we have two options. One is we can spend $300,000, do some short-term fix, and go out and do a CIP project and finish the whole of the rest of the needs for the police department. And we would then go and look at the other methodologies that we have for the energy efficiency projects. Let me bring up one other thing. We did about $650,000 worth of improvements between 2009 and 2010 with the stimulus money that we received. Our average payback in that period, and these were all energy efficiency projects, there were a few where we did do some upgrades and mechanical equipment. It was like a 6.5-year payback overall within that. And that was a simple payback, and we didn't finance it, and that did not include some of the outside administrative costs that were there to administer the project, do project management, and so forth. Is that?
Any other comments?
My question would be the wastewater treatment plant, because it was always intimated to us that once the new one went online, that electricity costs were gonna go sky high. Did that happen, would be my question. And I know it's the smallest one on here for the largest project we have is $925. So I'm pulling one specifically out that I know, like it was my child, the wastewater treatment plant. $925, does that help us
Right.
save on?
The energy conservation measure that's recommended there
Okay.
is minuscule. It's actually vending misers. We did not look at any of the wastewater treatment plant processes because of the project that's going on there now. So we avoided that completely.
The project was
I don't blame you.
But to answer your question about energy costs, no, but it will.
Right.
The most energy consumptive processes have not turned on yet,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
will, and we expect.
And
to-
actually, we've just seen that happen in this last
Started
billing
up.
cycle,
Oh,
about
great.
150,000 kilowatts more than previous months.
We knew that was coming. All right, well then we'll step
we
away
knew
from
that.
that one until we can get a better view on it. Let me go to the chiller then. I could text Chief Duncan now and just put chiller and watch her, grind to a halt in her car and leave skid marks on the highway. But I don't want to do it, especially she's going down Division Street and I know that it's changed. At $300,000 and at $687,000, are there any other options that solve the problem? This chiller goes back to, when it was an incinerator before it was the police department. This goes all the way back to the beginning of time.
Sure.
So my question is there something other, I'm not adverse to putting window units in the chief's office if I thought it was gonna cost less. But for that amount of money here, the $687,000, and we have $300,000 for it. If we had all the money in the world, I'd say I'm for a budget amendment for $1.7 million, but I'm not gonna vote for that. I mean, straight out of the box, I'm telling you, I'm not gonna vote for that. The stimulus package things were easy. We did those, City Administrator Chambers and I, with the stimulus packages, with the 750,000 pages per project, watch them all go through and change the way we did things and some of the old things that were down in the yard and all through Public Works, trying to just save money on the window unit. But Barbara Dunker can't find something different to do. She may be getting window units there at the police department. So my question to you would be, can we go back to the police department and say for $687,000, $300,000, which we have, is it possible that the chiller could just go in the bog, down by the fire department, and we could just be rid of it and do something different? Because in the end, and I whispered to the mayor, $687,000, $1.4 million, that bonds a new building somewhere. That allows us to maybe start over again and not have this problem in this building. So my question would be for procurement and for the police department, for that amount of money, because this is gonna have to be pay as you go. I mean, we're gonna have to bond some of it, we're gonna have to borrow some of it, but for me, just right here in my little 1/5 of this, I could, if I had all the money in the world, we had all the money in surplus in the world, yeah, but that's too long, it's too long to wait for the return. Especially since there could be, if another administration comes, the federal government, a stimulus package that gets us the grant money to do all this, you know, at some other time. One can only hope that that happens, but that just got me in trouble, with Chief Duncan, actually, is what he did.
Let me try to clarify something here. It's just not the chiller that we're taking care of.
It's
We're,
not the whole building.
well, we have a cooling tower that needs to be replaced. There's an air handling unit in the mechanical room that we looked at a whole bunch of different varieties of options. We're actually going to replace the air handling unit, and we're basically taking a system that was poorly designed, that combined everything and kind of separating it. So now all the units throughout the building that are basically the wall units or like little mini air conditioners are going to be handled by the cooling tower, and the chiller is going to be downsized, and the new air handling unit is going to take care of all the center core of the building. We're also going to make all the lighting through the building in LED. So when we're done here, we're basically going to have a new HVAC system, and that was one of the mandates from the mayor and the administrative team when we get done. Originally, we didn't envision we could do that, but the $600,000 is going to give us a new HVAC system along with new HVAC controls. So it's just not the chiller, it's a comprehensive approach. But I will also tell you, there were times when I got very insistent to the team from Honeywell, and we're on our 7th version of an original design option. We kept reclining it. I don't like that. Go back and do this. I don't like that. It's too much. Let's go here. There was a point where we were going to only retrofit the air handling unit. Now we've got a new one, and we've actually, within the time frame, we're actually going to have what we call variable frequency drives that will make it work. So if I'm right, our concept was when we walk away for a while, we'll have a new mechanical system, controls, lighting, that we can get another 20 years from. I hope I didn't misrepresent.
No, I'm good with what you
You did,
described.
okay.
I agree with that, but again, that's saying pie in the sky, we have all the money in the world. Is there any way to take this sheet and prioritize it? I mean, what would be the first thing on here that you would have us do?
I
If-
think the police department.
Okay.
That for years, I've been saying you need to put it in the capital improvement plan. We came up with a short-term improvement. Every day, we sit here and say the cooling tower, I mean, I
Is
have
there
literally gone out there when the pipe broke on the cooling tower, and we had to stand there with the welder and tell him how to weld the thing back together. So we're in
New
that
building.
situation.
New building.
Well, that's,
Is there
that
anything-
is an option, but. But-
At this type of money, does it go
Am I wrong?
police headquarters and then drop off to something remarkably insignificant compared to is the next thing the street lighting, because that's the next biggest one on here?
Sure. We've not necessarily, other than saying we need to start out with the police department.
Right.
After that, we have not prioritized the order of,
Okay.
hey, does the fire department come next? Does the street lighting come next? Some of these can maybe happen concurrently as well.
Would you, I'm just trying to figure out, if, we're not gonna do a $1.4 million budget amendment this evening, correct? You see that face down there? No.
I'm not going to support it.
Right, so my question would be, what's first? How much money do we have already for it?
Let me ask it maybe a different way.
Okay.
Let me ask it, we do the police department. What else is mandated for us to do?
Nothing. Now,
Now,
that being said,
Does that include, is the streetlights not?
no, none,
No.
nothing else is
Okay.
included.
So we
So
could- we
option
could
1 and
only
2,
do- We could only do the police department
you could.
fully.
You could.
Okay.
So a couple things are going to happen. One, Honeywell drops out of the picture.
Okay.
2, there's no guaranteed energy savings.
Correct.
3, it has to be completely redesigned, which means we have to go out and hire another engineer
Wait, go
to
back.
design the system.
Go back. Mm-hmm. It has to be completely redesigned.
Yes,
But you would have to go into a traditional design and construction project. at
We
this
don't
point.
get what Honeywell has already?
we have their investment grade audit, but we have not paid
don't have
for
the
in our
papers.
contract.
The
No, we
design.
haven't. And we haven't contracted for them to give us their designs.
Well, if we don't have that from them, then I'm not sure that they're necessary for moving forward. I mean,
They
it's
would be
nice.
for
Mayor.
option 3.
The mayor's got it.
Yeah, well, and that's an option. So two things that I want to put out there. So one, if we don't take on the 1.4 million in debt to do the project, yes, we have a cost avoidance of $1.4 million. But the net result of the project is about $1.4 million in savings too. The funding source is not general funds. You know, we're not paying for this with money, with our money. We're paying for it with the cost savings that result from the project. So it's cash that we would not otherwise have. That's the reason to go this route. The reason to go this route is it creates $1.4 million in revenue or in cost avoidance that becomes, available money otherwise. It doesn't produce a windfall, because the result is we're going to spend it repaying the debt.
Does Keith have a thing in his chip abacus on his desk that has $1.4 million on this side and what we're saving?
Yes,
and he's
'cause
putting a thing
It never would have
across
got
like this.
Yes, because we never would have brought it forward if we hadn't had if we hadn't gotten to look at Keith's abacus first. Keith's uncomfortably
I mean,
sitting over there
because
like,
by the time this
I
all
didn't
comes
know they
to
all saw my
fruition, none of
abacus.
us will be here. Well, I mean, we'll be on the planet. I don't know if we'll be in the building.
right. Right,
So
so
my
this is-
question is, are we sure? It's like that Social Security lockbox from 2000. We saw what happened there.
Choosing, I think the answer to your question is choosing to do something like the work necessary at the police department is absolutely fine. But if we don't do it this way, it comes with no funding source. So we're just going to spend the cash. So choosing to do that is a, $300,000 plus engineering. So let's say a $400,000 or $500,000 cost to the city. Choosing to go this route is a $0 cost to the
So
city.
the one
It's
that
a
needs
break
it the
even.
most is the one that doesn't save us a dime.
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome to government. Welcome to
But
being in
that's-
politics.
But that's a
But that's the
capital,
way- But that's the way these energy performance contracts, you take the thing over here that saves you some money and you blend it with the one that has the least, and you come up with this holistic project that will give you that long-term savings. And by the way, the cost basis is based on a really favorable electricity contract we have now. If down the road that contract were to be higher, the savings to the city gets to increase very quickly. So, but this is not uncommon to do an energy performance contract in this methodology, to pay for one part.
And there's another
of
thing
the other.
that's come up, which is the streetlights as another high cost part of this work. At some point in the coming months, I want to come to you and talk about our streetlights in general. We pay almost $1 million a year, and about $850,000 a year of that is fees. And something's got to give there. And if you look at the same sort of mindset of, we've got some major capital improvements to make to our streetlights citywide. Yes, and that's a real cost that comes with no savings. If we're taking offline streetlights that cost us a fee to a company, no matter who that company was, there is two totally disconnected things that potentially pay for itself over time.
Does
So-
the 379 buy them and make them ours and put LED in them?
Not
no.
this, not
These
this
are
set.
only, these are city-owned
City-owned.
streetlights
But-
that we would
but-
convert to LED.
So the city-owned, there is a marginal savings that can be achieved through the transition to LED. But the non-city-owned, we're paying more than we should for two reasons. One, they're non-LED, although Delmarva Power is transitioning some. And two is that we pay a steep tariff to that company in order to let them own, maintain, operate it in our city. But we would pay far less in maintenance costs and have enough money to replace streetlights as well and upgrade them as we go. So I just want to say
Does
that,
the savings, let me ask it this way, does the savings that we would make with, because the next biggest one on here is the streetlights. Does the savings, would the savings to the street lighting require that we have a change in the legislature to say that we can take our?
No.
No.
we just have to be willing to replace it with our own streetlight. A new LED.
A new
street-
LED
yeah.
up there, which they will let us
They
do.
will let
Are
us
they
do.
solar powered, or
we-
are they still wired into electricity?
They're all wired in, yeah. I don't know that there are solar.
So
there's
my
no sol-
question would be for Keith.
There's some, I've
Is
seen
if
them.
we get Barbara Duncan or Chiller, how quickly does Tom Stevenson's streetlights pay back in? Is it still all those years? Does doing any one or fewer of these things speed this up at all? With all that you just went through all those times?
If we don't do all of these, I think we're down to the most optimum methodology through all the iterations that we've done that blends this together, that kept it under the original 15 years. It gives us the projects that tend to give us the payback, yet pay for the investment at the police department. Would you agree, Bob?
Correct. As Jennifer indicated earlier, we looked at every building, every item within the city. We were probably targeted over 4 mil, but we flushed this down as to what would be, one, what takes care of the police department issues as the main priority, and what can we put in there in addition to stick below the 15-year threshold? And that's the items Richard's talking about in the list that Jennifer has in front of everybody. So, I think the points that you would look at is what the mayor indicated before. If you separate this as a capital improvement project, if you just did the cooling tower, you'll spend 300 plus, and that's capital dollars invested. Or if it came time that you needed to do the chiller or the makeup air unit, let's say that was within a year or 2 years, that's still capital cost dollars that you're gonna be investing with no return, where this is a full project amount being paid for by the energy savings. And I think that's maybe a simple way of looking at it as, how do you get 1.4 infrastructure dollars invested with paying for by savings versus investing 500 today and maybe another 500 a year 2 or year 3.
So, Mr. Heath, the issue you have, if I'm correct, is that it just takes far too long to get the savings back. And the one that we need most of all is the one that takes us so many years out, because everything else is 7 to 10 years.
Yeah, I wish we've already been through the first session of the budget for next year, because then I would see the financial health of the city.
Right.
And you talk about debt and those things. It would make it a lot easier to make a decision, I think. I have a problem with it. I have a problem with the approach, not the approach relative to the way the analyzation was done, not at all. But I'm struggling with, over the last couple of years, we've had several things that, budget amendments that have drawn down the surplus, et cetera. So the cash is a point that we need to be
Well,
conscious of,
I
and
can
there
speak,
is none.
and I can speak to that. We saw an 11% rise in our unassigned fund balance this year, a major increase. So, we're in a good position on cash. We're in a fairly good position on debt. But I would say,
Is that because the wastewater treatment plant isn't on those books?
no,
that-
it is.
No, it's
It is.
still
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah, but it's still, we're still in a good position. Now, that made us jump up quite a bit when we took that on.
But aren't we allowed to keep
That's-
it on the other page per the state?
As far as our debt margin, we no longer.
English,
It's not in the calculation of our restriction.
okay.
Just our payments are,
Okay.
our debt
Yeah,
payments are.
We're definitely paying.
Yeah, because the ceiling,
We exclude the proprietary funds from our calculation of
Oh, that's not general, yeah, you're right.
No, it's
not
off,
general.
yeah, the state has let us put it
But-
over.
But just having
Inside.
finished CIP and getting ready to send that here, I will tell you, it would be difficult to add this in to CIP, and thus difficult in the budget next year.
I think that what bothers me is that it's like, it's one of these things that's hanging out there, and if we don't do it one way, it's almost like there is no choice, and there should be.
Well, there is.
Well, there is.
One of them stinks more than the other.
Yeah, I mean, it's a degree of what we want to do. And I just, you know, and I know that it's me because
It's a
I come
funding
from the
vehicle,
private sector.
this is.
And I know what the return on investment calculations were for my company. Of course, I work for the Dutch, so that made it a little more interesting. But they're very conservative, but still, I struggle with it. So that's me personally. I don't know what the rest of the council feels.
I mean, for me, when I look at the issue with the police department, I think that issue, we've got to tackle, we've got to take care of it. It's been hanging out there too long.
Yep.
And that's our number one priority. So, I mean, and I look at, the whole thing needs to be done. I mean, it's got to be done.
Again, I would
But-
say, should we get you to go back and prioritize these? I mean, nobody wants to say to Salisbury Police Department, Station 16, well, you're last because your savings is gonna be $7 a quarter per the little thing spinning around. Well, they don't spin around anymore, do they?
So,
So can I ask, prioritized for what reason?
So that 1.4 isn't what I'm doing. Maybe it's the 300 and the 128.
here's the thing
Something
though,
else.
if you cut anything you
It's gonna
cut.
take longer.
You're gonna take-
No, anything you cut cuts the revenue.
Cuts the,
And
yeah.
it cuts the savings.
It's
Well,
either.
that's fine and good, but I voted for bike lanes and I voted for bike paths. And now I'm forced to have to make a decision to spend more money. And to be honest with you, just being straight and honest with you, if I had to choose between bike paths and this, I would have done this. But I've taken votes that have spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on bike paths, and now I'm being asked to reconsider.
So this works the opposite of that. So if we don't do this, we're gonna spend more of those capital dollars and not be able to do projects like that.
Let me ask a technical question from Keith's standpoint. Does this do anything with Barbicane Thornton when they come in on the audit?
Yeah.
This idea that you're gonna spend this, and we're gonna put it over on this book over here, and slowly Keith's gonna put the money back into it.
The only thing, as far as our debt is concerned, is it's going to push on our debt service, meaning increase it. The total debt service, I think, was 150,000, 153,000. So that's 153,000 that's not available for other capital improvements.
To be honest with you, Mr. Council President, it just all sounds too good to be true. It just does, and I'm not sure if rates go up, do we save less? If rates go down, do we save
No,
more?
quite the inverse. If rates go up.
I understand
save
that,
more.
I just, you have a remarkable way, and I love you for it, of none of this being any trouble whatsoever. And I don't know how you do
It's
it.
taken months of work.
Well,
and-
no, I don't mean the work
struggle
part,
to get
but the idea that somehow we can do this, and somehow he's gonna be able to keep it off to the side. And will we be able to come in or call you during the day and find out how much money is back?
It doesn't go off to the side. This is directly on our books, just like anything else.
Understand that. But what I'm saying is if I'm at Acme or I'm at Walmart and as people are apt to do, like they do with the traffic out at the Aldi light.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What are you doing about that? My question to you is, can I call him and say, I voted for 1.4 and as of today, $275,000 is back in there.
So the question.
I could support it if you could put a little thing on the internet, on the city website that said, we did this to save the money, and this is how much is, this is how, I know, it's because I teach kindergarten. If you could do it in a graph, I'm your man. If there was a way to show people that I took this vote, it's an election year, Keith, make this a little easier for us, could you?
As far as
Can I tell you one
the
thing?
payback, I can just say this. We calculated that over the life of the 15 years, that the debt service exceeded the savings by 500,000. So it is costing the city 500,000 for something that would cost a lot more if we didn't have
what's
those
the-
things.
what's
Cost
the latest-
avoidance.
Their calculation is different because they're escalating the savings. They're assuming a compounding of those savings. So I calculate it one way, we're both calculating it two different ways. One is with no escalation and one includes escalation. Without, it's about $500,000 of cost, and with, they have a lesser amount.
So the city council of 2031, is that where it shows on the books that it's paid for?
Well, it's a cost avoidance
I
is what it
understand.
is.
Well, I mean,
It's not-
to me, it's, we're trying to take the issue with the cooler and the repairs that need to be done at the police department and trying to lump it in here to say that we're gonna do this to help pay it off and save it.
Yes.
In my mind, it's, with buildings, you have to replace those systems. It's just a part of maintenance
Doing
and
business.
maintaining
Yep.
and a building. It's, at home, if mine goes up, we gotta get a new one. I mean, it's not I might get a better one that might be better on my electric bill in the future, but I don't think people take that and say, hey, this issue, we have to do it. The other portion of it, I view it in my mind as a separate issue. Those are things that we're gonna do, but we're doing them because we wanna use less electricity, we wanna use less energy, and the ultimate goal in the city of owning our own street lights and not having to pay a tariff that don't have power is another goal, and I think maybe that conversation lumped in with those other items, that's an issue that I think goes together.
I think that one's got to be taken separately just because you're talking about $38 million in cost over the next 20 years in streetlights, and most of that just being profit to a company.
Yeah.
$38 million of taxpayer money.
Right.
And I can't get that number out of my head now that I know it. And no, don't apologize. Do not apologize. I'm grateful that I know it because now we can do something about it. But I think, but on this, I guess my only response, and I've been thinking about this too, is, basically everybody that's been working on this, whether it's Honeywell or Mr. Anderson or the city staff, there is no solution right now that is just, the most perfect, beautiful thing in the world. It's all, okay, we got very tight margins, and it's Honeywell's not going to be swimming in Salisbury money. I'm sorry to give you all that visual, but it's okay, and it makes us a more efficient city. It means we're spending less on electricity. It means we've taken care of a bunch of projects that we wanted to take care of in terms of energy efficiency. And if we were to take out the police department projects, if we were to take that out, then I think we have a project that, maybe Honeywell won't feel as good about it from a profitability standpoint, but we can all pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, that's great. However, then we're going to end up spending almost twice as much on the police department project just from an engineering and design standpoint. And then what good have we done other than made ourselves feel good over here? We've made ourselves feel pretty bad about ourselves over here. So there's two ways to go, and I think it's
a question of how much
acceptable
lipstick you
middle
want on the pig.
ground is what's on the table today.
Could I ask the question, as we're talking about Honeywell, what is the cut?
Sure, we have all that.
Can I just you had asked a question a minute ago. Because this is a guaranteed energy performance contract that comes under a protocol that requires measurement and verification, at the end of the first year, if the savings isn't there, they have to reduce their payment schedule, and the guarantee has to match the savings. So you had asked earlier, if somebody calls me and says, where are we? it will match. So if we come back and find it's only 99,000, they have to write us a check for the whole term of the contract to get us to that difference. Am I correct, Bob?
That's what the guarantee is
The
for.
guarantee is for.
That's
So-
what the statute, going through with the statute.
So just understand, this guarantee has some teeth to it and will provide that basis.
Now, to answer your question, of the 1.7 million, okay, about 1.4 million is true hard costs, okay? The work, the components, okay? There is about 6% in Honeywell's overhead, 3% in Honeywell's profit, and 10% on a project services fee total. So it's about 19.7% in all those fees combined. Now, let me give you an
I was just
idea.
gonna see if he could do it in his head.
I did it.
Oh, you did? You wanna see if he could do it?
So let me give you an idea of what some of those costs are, okay? It would be the investment grade energy audit. It's design and engineering fees, okay? Just for a placeholder, $76,000 in design and engineering fees for everything that's on this list. Okay? That's lighting. That's the comprehensive holistic system at the PD. All right? We have construction management and project administration. You have system commissioning. You have even training on the new equipment, because in some of these buildings, we're putting in a building management system. Okay? Part of the site-related cost components, you're looking at bonding, the measurement and valuation, there's rebate engineering and administration, safety management, site conditions. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what goes into that approximately 19 to 20% that is quote-unquote their cut.
And is there any, from a grant,
Yeah.
you know,
Sure.
things change, administrations change, philosophies change. I mean, we did do stimulus funds because, you know, they were there, and we did the projects with it. Is there, whose grants now?
Nancy Talbot.
Nancy.
Nancy?
Yeah. So anything that we would, any rebates we could get from Delmarva Power would offset the 1.42 million. Any grants that we could find would offset that as well. Now, I can tell you that the rebate amounts aren't really that high, okay? That's something we've already looked at. I'm gonna tell you the amount, you're gonna go, ooh, on, you know, 1.4 million.
So I don't expect
You
more
know,
than $5 or
it's,
$10.
we estimated about $44,000 in rebates, okay? As far as grants, yes, we can pursue that. There may be some grant opportunities. Maybe Richard can speak a little bit more to that. But we don't have a good feel yet for what that amount could potentially be. So I don't want to sit here and make any promises on what we could obtain in grants.
And Richard, can you say again, the shelf life on the replacements at the police department?
Okay, the
The
chill.
shelf life versus,
The chiller, the cooling tower,
25.
and the air handling units. The useful life, the best we can do is 25 years.
and how long does it take to get us back 18? The money back
Less
completely
than
for all of
15.
it?
We're at
14,
15.
14,
Yeah.
14.5, okay. If we were,
And that's for the whole project. Just for the police department is about 23 years.
23 years, yes.
So the shelf life of the thing we're gonna put in there
Is longer than
is
the simple
a year and a
payback.
half longer than how long it would take
But again,
to get the savings.
that is correct, but
I'm
we're
just
looking
doing the
at,
years
yes,
in-
yep.
In my head,
But
so.
we're looking at, again, energy savings. You're gonna have this cost for the police department no matter
No
what.
matter what. yeah.
Right
No
now,
matter
No, I
what.
understand, I'm just thinking about it in a long
Sure.
term, because of some police chief is gonna come to some mayor 25 years from now and say, I'm gonna need a new building. And it's gonna be 1 year after we finished.
No, it'll be 7 years. Because if you're talking a 15-year payback on a project,
On a shelf life of something that's 25.
right, so the vehicle of doing the energy performance project is to take a grouping of items and you focus on the bottom payback of your overall.
Of the total.
You
The
don't look
14.
at your individual items, because that's where you get into, again, being on the private sector, I've worked on both sides, there's different thresholds. So if you looked at each item individually, you would be very upset saying this doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. But if you put it all together in a pocket or in a basket that says I can do some real quick paybacks to help some infrastructure upkeeps, now I have an overall of less than 15 years.
I'm gonna ask you this question, and it's gonna come out terribly, so I'm gonna, as in my family, we pre-apologize for things we're gonna say to one another, usually at holidays. Why can't we just do this? Why do we need you?
Well, you could go out, and I think that would probably ask the question, and so, let's say you wanted to go out and do the cooling tower, or you did the cooling tower and the makeup area, you did all those pieces. You'd work with, I think it would be with Amanda, you would go get engineering services.
Because we're still gonna save when we do it all. We're still gonna save electricity.
Okay.
Is
so-
it because you have a thing in your head to calculate? I mean, I'm trying to figure out.
Right, so
why.
that's where I'm going, so,
Okay.
so if you did it separately, you would pay for engineering fees. You either, if it's easy enough, you would just bid it out to prime contracts, or you bid it out to a construction manager. So you'd have those, you do your advertisement fees, so on and so on. So you're gonna have a cost. Internally, you know that these items are gonna save dollars. You don't have a
There's
guarantee
no
of that, but you
guarantee.
do know that you're gonna save dollars. On our side, we are guaranteeing those savings. We have an M&V team that goes in. We've gone through peer reviews as to what all these items are gonna generate savings and costs. That's why we could sit here and guarantee what those dollars are. So you could go a different route.
But you do pay if you don't meet it, if we don't meet it.
That's correct, as what Richard indicated.
That's right.
If you had $100,000.
So I'm just figuring out if it's Amanda, and Amanda does this on her own, and it doesn't meet her. I can't get it from her.
Right.
I can't get it from her.
Try.
But I don't have the cost of you. My question to the staff would be, when we did the stimulus projects, did we end up saving money? Obviously, some of the air conditioners I saw come out of the yard, we obviously saved money. I mean, it was,
You-
You
Are you
know,
gonna
we
save some,
saved-
are you gonna save some money? You'll save a percentage, not as much as what I think you're thinking. Because if you're still gonna hire a consultant, you're gonna pay a percentage. If you have a construction manager, if you need it one, you're gonna pay a percentage.
Yeah.
Advertisement is a piece, your legal fees, so there's a certain dollar associated to it.
We had looked at this extensively because it really did come up internally to say, why can't we do all these things ourselves? Number one, we'd have to piecemeal it. Number two, Amanda could maybe even speak to how much she would usually look to pay in terms of a percentage of a contract value to say, okay, I'm still going to spend 8, 10, 12% between design, engineering, construction management fees, project closeout, and so on and so forth. So it's really weighing your options. You have to think of this guaranteed energy savings performance contract as just a different project delivery method. I know on first blush that, yes, it does look like you do pay a premium for the cost to do this.
because Honeywell wouldn't do it if they weren't making money. And I don't want to
Well,
keep people
correct.
making money, but the money
No.
that I have isn't my money.
We're taking the risk factor away from the city of doing the project.
I think if I could, we've been beating this horse for an hour. I think this is one of those situations because of the fact that we're gonna, if we do it the way we'd like to do it, it's gonna cost us more money. Okay? That's the bottom line. And this is one of those cases where it's the lesser of, it's the lesser of the evils, in my opinion. And I think that, having listened to Keith, the mayor, and the gentleman, I think that while we know what we would like to do, I don't think that it's going to be possible to do it without incurring a cost of, I think the number was 500 grand, the difference in the debt. We can't afford 500 grand.
4 to 500?
And that's without seeing all the fantastic fun numbers that we're going to see next month.
Right.
And the CIP, which can't wait.
Well, what I would say this, if the mayor is, and the administration is all in, then maybe they need to go back and change their CIP. Because,
Doesn't.
well,
Having
We
discussions.
knew, we assumed all of this, you know, in developing the CIP.
so that's in the CIP?
No, it was in last year's CIP. Now it's done.
So it's
Yeah.
not gonna be in the new one?
Yeah, it's in the budget. And we funded it. Remember, we put $300,000.
No, I understand, I'm saying that if we're gonna do this,
It's
it's a
unrelated
long
to
time
future
wait for
CIPs.
savings. I'm almost turning, come around the other way, and it looks like you're almost coming around the other way.
Yeah, I am. I'm coming around. Kicking and screaming, but I'm coming around.
Just the other thing, this project's ready to go.
Yeah.
If we go back to the traditional design, we're probably a year to 2 years out before we would see improvements.
Which, and the real problem with that is just that the chiller might go during that time.
Yeah, we can't mess around with the children. Let's get that, we got to get that resolved.
Yes.
There's no question. I don't want to see any more budget amendments relative to that system.
Agreed.
That will
And
drive me nuts.
seriously, there is no other option but to do another
Emergency
show.
emails.
There- I can tell you, we have gone over and over and over. This is probably finally, there was a point when I was ready to tell the city to walk from this. This is now the best option that we've got on the table. And it took a lot of screaming and yelling and pushing to get to this point. This is
Are we gonna
other
have
than
parts for this?
completely redesigning the entire
Every
building
time
or
we-
getting a new building.
Every time we buy something, when people come before us, and I'm now talking about a decade's worth of experience, you gotta do it. It has to be done, and then 3 years later, it's, well, can't get parts for it anymore, so it's gonna, this chiller better cool the cemetery where they bury me if I vote for this, Mr. Anderson. Because,
Good segue.
there we go.
Could we,
Just as my
are you okay?
14th year with the city, I'm giving you, we're,
I'm fine.
You okay? You okay?
I'm okay.
I'm not okay. I wanna be.
I'm okay,
Okay.
right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have
Thanks,
consensus.
you guys. Thanks so much for all the
Thank you.
work.
While Jennifer and Richard are here, can I just say thank you and to our friends at Honeywell. It's been a year and a half of pain and discomfort.
It's been 3 years. We've been
No.
going through this
You're
for-
more than
Oh, well,
welcome to
this
join
has
us
been
for
a
the
year.
budget
Yeah, that's
session
been a year.
There you go.
and share the
We've been
pain.
going through this chiller for 3
No,
years.
still
thanks.
here with you.
All right, thank
very
you
much.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. Mr. Stevenson. You sure you want to come up?
Yes, I am. Confident.
This is peanuts compared to the first one.
What he said. You ready for me?
Yeah, go right
Shelf
ahead.
life on the street sweeper.
Go right ahead.
10 years.
I
Good-
passed it this morning.
Good evening.
Eastern Shore Drive.
everyone. Oh, you did? Yeah. And to think Ben and I have agonized over presenting this budget amendment for $24,250 since
Good.
a month ago. We really didn't, and would rather not be here asking for the additional funds.
Me too.
This is not going to be easy, is it? When we saw and received a quote from the vendor for a street sweeper nearly a year ago now, they were still using technology that existed at the time. Since then, the federal government has upped the emissions control requirements for non-road engines, and in this case being a diesel engine, to from what was a Tier 3 engine to a Tier 4 engine. So this engine is more sophisticated and does a better job of handling combustion emissions than the Tier 3 engine. So we are in a situation where in order to meet those expectations for the Tier 4 engine, we have to come back before you now asking for an additional $24,250 to fund the street sweeper.
Dumb question. Did we enter the PO already?
No.
Okay, that answers my second question. So we're not grandfathered.
No. In fact, at the time, there were still some Tier 3 engines available, although they're technically illegal. Manufacturers were willing to pay a penalty to use them, but they're just no longer available. So we're hamstrung at this point by the new regulations.
Questions?
If
So
I
wonderful
were
evening.
at the grocery store, the difference between Tier 3 and Tier 4 is that the amount of particulate that's coming out the back of the, you know,
Basically,
how
this,
much ozone am I saving for $24,000, Tom? You gotta give me something I can deal with. I mean, I'm gonna get beat up as it is, because I'll probably end up going ahead and voting with the rest of them on this other one when it finally comes, but.
yeah, these engines are so sophisticated that they actually take a majority of the emissions and reduce them to what is actually soot. And this Tier 4 engine does a better job of managing that soot once it's created. So it does protect the environment.
Then let me ask this question because based on, again, 10 years of experience, a bottle sitting the wrong way, a plastic on the wrong way on the street. You know, I always wanted to buy the Toyota of street sweepers because they were constantly going down. Has the Consumer Reports reliability circle that they used to use, that was all red if it was a good car, if you'll remember those, have we gotten any better with these in terms of how long they go before something odd, and the belt that is only created in one part of a small province of a nation half a world away, have they gotten any better?
The technology has, and we have not experienced as much downtime with the Temco model as we have
Yeah.
others. So,
All right, do we have consensus then?
sorry, and thank
If
you.
you just give us the savings on washing the vehicle to see what the payback is. I
Okay.
think you're probably going to find it's
We can
82
calculate that
years.
if I can use Keith's abacus. perhaps.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up,
Thank you, Tom.
where are we? Property line adjustment.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, thanks. We received a request from a property owner of a parcel that's in the county. He was in the process of re-subdividing his property and realized that there was encroachment from a building that was built 18 to 20 years ago. So it encroaches on city property, which is part of the police shooting range. So they have prepared a new plat for our consideration to adjust the property line instead of having to tear down this building. I mean, the building does have value to them. So we worked with them on how to adjust the line so that it meets building setbacks and it's not too awkward. You know, at one point we were kind of jagging around the building, and now this is just a much more easy adjustment of the property line. So it is in the forested area of the shooting range, so it doesn't impact what they're doing, the actual operations at the range.
Right.
So it's a relatively minor.
What kind of,
plat.
is it a
It's
Quonset or?
like a shed, like an
Wood?
out parcel building. Oh, is it wood? I'm not sure.
Okay, just wondering. So it all works out with the way that it's been changed?
It does.
It doesn't change acreage or anything
No,
else?
it's a clean swap of acreage.
Gotcha.
All based off of making sure we had the proper building setback right at the corner of their building.
Gotcha. Questions or comments? Any problems with it? No? Okay, we got consensus. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
right, go back to the top.
Look, there's Delmarva Power and Lighting on this.
Last,
Which doesn't cost us much.
all right. Delmarva Power Utility Easement. Ann, how are you?
I'm fine.
Okay, what do you got?
This is for a project that I'm sure you're aware of and you've heard about. It's the Ross Building. It's 132 Main Street. And as part of that development, and the developers are, Nick is here, is they would like to make a connection to the parking garage, which will be a discussion at a later point, not for tonight. But it's, in order to do that, Delmarva Power will not allow a structure to go over their lines. So that is raising the issue or forcing the issue of burying those power lines. And in order to do that, the city would need a utility easement agreement between the city of Salisbury and Delmarva. Power and Light will have to be executed. And that's what I'm here for.
To their credit, if I may, they have really worked quickly on this, which, you know, has not always been the case. So they have worked quickly, and, you know, now, they are obviously charging the developer for that work, but,
Thank
you
you,
know, yeah.
Mayor.
But they are working diligently to make it happen so that they are not an impediment to the redevelopment, which we're obviously all grateful for.
And it is, as the mayor said, this is bearing the utilities is not the cost. The developer bears that cost.
Okay, questions?
Mark, is there any precedent if we do this for this one, if somebody else comes back? I want to do it, no doubt about it, but I'm just wondering if, because it's a specific, I mean, it's not spot zoning, but you know what I mean? We're doing something specific for one.
We've done this a couple times in the last few years, for, you know, Delmarva Power easements or other utilities, so I don't know the answer to that
Well,
question.
I
but
was
think
just
we-
thinking
I think we
about
would
the connection to
anytime.
the.
Similar things have been done for Salisbury University, if I'm not mistaken. We've done, that's where we've done it. So, I mean, I guess in the case.
Also, individual homeowners, like,
I don't recall
on
those.
Beekman Park Drive, we did one like 6-8 months ago. I think anytime somebody asks, we generally have been fine with it. I can't remember any time that we haven't had,
Yeah, the real issue is just to be sure that it doesn't interfere with any of the city's operations, and that's, I assume, okay.
Yeah.
Because it is city-owned property, which is,
it's an alley, basically.
It's
The
an
alley,
alley,
City
but
the
it's-
alley between the,
but it belongs to the city, so
Yeah.
the lines will be going
under,
Instead of over city property, it'll be going under city property, which
Gotcha.
is why we need the easement.
which is actually better.
Oh, absolutely. Is there anything else along that alley that needs to be done as well?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Any problems?
Verizon and Comcast, we
Do
looked
it all
at,
now.
we looked at, you know, if
Consensus?
they had anything.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have consensus. At this time, we are going to go into closed session to discuss a legal matter. So I need so we're going to adjourn the work session, and I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Mr. Boda?
Second.
Ms. Jackson? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Decisions. Thank you, everyone. Good discussion tonight. it's an ugly pig that you want to put some lipstick on.
I asked my libertarian friends that flank you on both sides, when.
Oh geez, I got one on each side
Yeah,
now?
you do have one on each side. No. My nephew.
We're on, okay. We've just come out of closed session, and we discussed, we got an update on a legal matter, open legal matter. So there's no other business, so we are adjourned.
Kim, would you like me to leave this on your desk?